products from, for instance, China. But all of this can, of course, also be seen not only as threats, but also as opportunities. It just depends which angle you are looking at it from. And finally, which was also touched upon by a former speaker, I can't remember your name, sorry, but the adoption of ICT, research for development, and citizen science tools is quite important for us now if we want to develop and share our research knowledge. And I think that is actually what IITA is about to do. So maybe if you summarize, some of the global challenges of today and look at IITA's future research strategy. Of course, climate change is something that we cannot ignore. It was also mentioned before by a former speaker that the global population is going to increase from 7 to 9 billion. And we also know that the majority of this growth is going to take place in Africa. Of course, one could wish that African leaders also contributed to reduce this growth, population growth in Africa. Maybe that is wishful thinking, but I think that is probably also one of the things that the continent has to look into. Because it will be severely difficult, to continue to feed a healthy, growing, fully vaccinated population in Africa. Despite of all this, Sub-Saharan Africa has 25% of the world's arable land, but generates only 10% of its agricultural outputs. We also know that the African farmers, they are losing 20 to 40% of their harvest to pests, diseases, and spoilage. And that is, of course, an area where IITA has a lot to contribute. If we summarize these crop losses, they could actually feed about 48 million people. I also presented to the board a couple of days ago that IITA perhaps also should look into how we can contribute to the adaptation of to a circular economy on the African continent. Because as it is now, we are just using and throwing away, and that is sort of a linear production line affecting Africa today, and they are going to affect Africa very much in the future. IITA also, of course, based on its past and present research experience, is very, let's say, institutional memory. Even if people, to some extent, come and go, we still have that institutional memory of what IITA has been doing in research. And as I said, it's important for us to be able to contribute. Of course, we should never forget the staff and the diversity of staff. It is a huge asset for us to address the main challenges that we are seeing today. The R4D and the newly established P4D, which is the Partnerships for Delivery. And that is where we can see that what is produced of research and technologies in our to transform the African agriculture. IITA has launched some time ago the One Health approach, the global challenges that we are seeing today, maybe except for population growth, which we have no control over. So I think if we follow the One Health approach, we can actually contribute to a sustainable intensification of agriculture in Africa. Should we then continue to work on the crops that we are working on? We have our mandate crops. We are to some extent also working on the high-value crops, such as vegetables, on the of our 50 years of experience on working on. So what we are we are now sort of in a phase where our breeding programs is sort of transforming to use maybe more modern and more efficient in the breeding to a large extent, and we have always addressed the so in essence, IITA is constantly addressing and developing the science and practice of understanding and overcoming the succession of biotic and abiotic factors that limits. And of course, we also have natural. We are actually ahead of the changes, whether there are climate changes, biological risks, invasive species, etc. When they arise, new challenges as they come. Established a biorisk management facility and to build early warning and rapid risk. The population is growing, and particularly the early risks of beef. Solution for the fall and tomorrow to be sure that we don't miss this opportunity to try to control. As I said, there are no single solution for the fall armyworm, so we are going to work together with CIMMYT on breeding, and we are going to work together with everybody who is interested in controlling the fall armyworm. And we also have together the research that we haven't really and soil, and I certainly believe that that is also one area where we could develop some apps and other tools. Yeah, I also want to develop feeds and mechanization will make this happen. That is created. Productivity improvement, catalyzing the development of effective. Of course, an area where we can still do a lot. We can, of course, not build roads, etc., but we can contribute. For instance, through doing the advocacy. Through him, we can maybe be able to have some influence on different governments and the decisions that they are making. Of course, access to nutrition, including community-based nutrition. This is also things that is developed in R4D but can be scaled out in P4D. And then, of course, one thing that IITA is very proud of is the business incubation platform. The idea behind this platform is that technologies that is proven to work but needs a private investor to be scaled up is put in, and BIP's job is to make that private investors understand that this is a profitable technique, a profitable project that they can invest in and sell. So that is a big challenge for BIP, but I think a pretty good job on that. And of course, that has been developed in R4D, transferred to P4D and BIP, and I think now is quite ready for private investors to take over. And then we have other ideas in R4D that we could feed into the BIP platform. So then in Africa, as we heard in the beginning, there are many, many people who is talking the walk. There are very few take on this. I can't hear you. All right. Yeah, that's good. So I think that should walk the talk with our partners for another 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that beautiful. The next speaker announced that tomorrow morning between 8, is it 8 or 8:30? 8:30. Between 8:30 and 10. Especially for the invited guests who have not really seen what we're talking about in some of these things. Because it's such a tight time, we're going to focus on the business platform and the. But when we get into the field during the open day, there will be exhibition booth where we could also see some research products. But if you want to join Ken Dashiell, can you stand again? Yeah. He would be leading that session tomorrow morning, and he will be pretty much alone because all our staff cannot travel